I ended up leaving my job in end of 2012, where I basically had more money coming in flipping houses than I did in my core business. But I'm a high C on DISC. I'm a cautious. I'm a very risk averse person. So I need a mentor, and I needed to have that kind of financial security I did to be able to give up the paycheck and go. If I did it sooner, I probably would have been, quite a bit further along than I am now. So that was that. And I was a solopreneur. It was purely a lifestyle business for me, really intentionally. And frankly, I was pretty burned out after I went full time because I was doing 2 jobs, and I had beaten the crap out of myself for 2 or 3 years, not figuring it out, and just really the valley of sorrow, like they say in the tech world. You have the excitement, and you have the valley of sorrow. They have to slowly climb back out before you start to achieve some level of success. That was like a 3-year thing for me.
Helping hardworking real estate investors, agents, and entrepreneurs grow a better business, mindset, and future. This is the CarrotCast podcast. Now here's your host, Trevor Mock.
What's up, y'all? I've got a really cool topic we're gonna dig in today, and an amazing guest. We first connected 2-3 years ago, probably over the phone. And I was definitely an admirer of this entrepreneur, this real estate investor from afar before he became a Carrot member. And it's just really cool seeing what he's done with his business, with the brand. They're over there in the DC market. Four Brothers buys houses. And the funny thing is, this podcast episode is actually sparked by a Facebook thread. And before I introduce you guys to John, and we dive into what he does in real estate, and we'll unpack how he's grown his business, what he sees with the market. But the main topic I want to dive into is something I think is going to be insanely relevant for anybody who's wanting to build a business of freedom and impact. And that's something we're so timely. The team and I were looking at our next 3 to 5 year vision, and we were looking at our company vision. And we're like, man, that thing's close, but it's not quite it. And what I always talk about, I talk about it a lot, is building businesses of freedom and impact. And so we're like, man, I think that's actually the vision moving forward. It's something we talk about all the time. It's something that we do. It's something that we're passionate about doing that. So we're going to talk about that with John and how he's been able to do that with his business, but also where he's stumbling, where he could use some insight and help. And hopefully I'll be able to unpack ways that I've done that as well. And I think everyone's going to get some great value. So I want to introduce onto the CarrotCast for the first time, John Carcone from Four Brothers Buys Houses. Business there in DC, but lives in Nashville right now. And John, welcome on the CarrotCast, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate the intro. I'm happy to be here. I've been an admirer of yours as well. A lot of your Facebook posts and just your general approach to business and life. I can tell you're like life first. Business supports the lifestyle that you want. A lot of us get that reverse. So yeah, likewise, man. Happy to be here,
dude. And it's funny, this whole thing spurred from a Facebook post, right? And this post was on September 10th, and I'll read the post, but it was shortly after that. It was probably like end of September, start of October. I deleted Facebook off my phone. I deleted like all that stuff off my phone. I deleted Instagram off my phone after that. And then Instagram's back now because I get distracted less there. And Facebook still isn't back on my phone. So the only way that I use it now is just on my computer, and I log in there once every couple of weeks. But I'm going to read this post first to set the stage for the podcast. But then we're going to kind of dive into your business, because you have an amazing business. We're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into kind of where you guys are now with the business, what's working for you now, things like that. But cool. September 10th, John posted this. I said, living my best life week is one where I could look at my calendar Sunday night and see absolutely nothing scheduled, not a single thing. When I was a one-man show, that was a lot easier now than with over a dozen employees. Shows how more is oftentimes just ... more, not better. At least for people with my personality and value system, deep, question mark, thought Thursday. I love it, man. So the thing I love the most about this is where we're going to dig in big time. Like I said, then I'm going to plant a seed, going to kind of do a cliffhanger, and then we're going to dive into real estate stuff. Is he says, sometimes it's funny how oftentimes more is just more, not less. And before we dive into that, dude, when you were posting that, kind of what spurred that post for you? Was it a crazy week that you had? Was it just a crazy series of weeks? Kind of what spurred that for you?
Yeah, it was I think it was an intense few weeks where I just had a lot more stuff in my calendar, a lot more meetings than I wanted to, and looking at my calendar, on Sunday for the week ahead, I had a few weeks in a row where I was just like, shit, like I have way more stuff than I want. And most of the stuff I don't want to be doing. I inherently don't like meetings of almost any type, really, like just by default, almost no matter what they are. But meetings are a very efficient way, of course, to run a business. So yeah, just kind of struggling with that and remembering back to like when it was just me, when I was buying all my deals off the MLS in 2013, 2014, I was making, like $500,000 a year because I had like no overhead. I was flipping 15, maybe 20 houses a year with just assistants and stuff like that. And I had nothing ever on my calendar. I still had stuff to do, but I had nothing scheduled. And just how much more, remembering back, I think I like that.
Dude, it's so interesting too, like, especially as you start to dive into masterminds and you get around really successful people. It happened to me, still sometimes happens to me, where you get around really smart people and oftentimes people talk about the top line, like revenue, right? We're like, man, I did X amount of deals or X amount of revenue. And you look across the room and you go, man, I was pretty darn happy with my business before I came in here. And now I see whatever it is, Mark over there is doing double the amount of deals and he's doing $1 million a year, and you look at it and go, man, well, maybe that's what I need to do. And this is something I want to dig into later. Like I said, is kind of that complex that oftentimes we get, and I have to continually remind myself of it. Is going, okay, why did I actually get into this business in the first place? Like, was it to beat Mark over there, or was it because I had a very specific vision of what I thought this was going to provide for me in my life, and my community?
Totally.
And there's a gap in there somewhere that oftentimes we get pulled in that direction of looking at other people or going after other people's dreams, and we forget about the original dream that brought us in there. And it's hard. It's hard, dude.
Yeah.
So
it's super hard.
So I want to pull you straight in here, and we had talked about this at the start. I'm like, hey, we're going to dig into some stuff here. So let's start in the real estate side. But I want to go back to that question there that I just said. Why the heck? I guess where did you start on the real estate side, and why the heck did you why did you want to get into real estate in the first place? Like, what was your dream that this business would do for you?
Yep. So kind of classic. I wanted freedom. I wanted autonomy. I didn't want to have to answer to anyone else. So I knew I had to work for myself. I also had income goals. I wanted to net $1 million a year. Yep. And I was 29. I was a mid-level sales manager making maybe 200 to 300 grand, doing well. Yep. But to reach $1 million, I would have to be a top level executive, most likely, which was not going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years even. Yep. So it was unlikely it was going to. And so the only way it was going to happen was do my own thing. And so I picked real estate just because I went to the RIA meetings, like a lot of people do, when they see the caliber of people who are in there. They're great people. They're good people. They're nice people, but they're not necessarily like the most brilliant or the most talented people you're ever going to meet. I thought I probably have similar level of aptitude that they do. And I was confident I could work harder. That's always kind of a given with me. And so I was like, I think that's doable. So I just picked it for that. Yep. So just purely financial reasons, purely for the kind of lifestyle that I thought it could afford me was the only reason why I got into it.
Dude, so, and I love it. So let's kind of dig into how you got your first deals done. We'll touch on what the business looks like now, because you're in Nashville now, which is really cool. Nashville's amazing, and your business is in DC. So you are separated from, geographically from it, which is a really big step, because you got to get some amazing systems down to be able to do that. But dude, where'd your first deals come from? That's always a fun one. Is kind of like, I had a dream, I had this thing, but then it finally kind of cracked through. Where'd the first ones come from? Yeah.
So this was back in 2010, 2011. So it was like the absolute worst time in that down cycle. And so you could buy stuff on the MLS.
Yep.
So that's where I was buying it. So much easier in a lot of ways than it is now. It's much more competitive now. So I joined a local networking group after about 1.5 years of trying wholesaling lease options and all sorts of different stuff that kind of didn't work. I joined a local networking group. I met a mentor there who saw some potential in me. And I was like, what can I do for you? She's like, I need deals. and she gave me access to her MLS as her assistant or whatever. And I was just on there every single day, pulled all the new listings, quickly comped them out, and just threw offers in. I used the regional contract. I used her LLC as the buyer, her proof of funds. It's almost like I'm her assistant, basically, submitting the offers. And if the deal came through, I would go run to the house for her. I would do a video, and then I would make small fee, $5 to $10,000. But I just needed that experience. The money wasn't that much. I ended up doing maybe 10 wholesales, maybe just all to her that year, and just learned, a shitload. And at the end of that year, we did our first flip, which was right after that first time home buyer credit expired.
Yeah.
If you guys remember that, and that totally freaking killed the market right as it went on the market. Ended up like losing $1,000 or something. But amazing experience with rehabbing that house and going through the wholesale process and everything. So that was kind of my start. So very unique time, that allowed me to start that way.
Dude, and I love it because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people they'll quit their jobs and they'll just dive right into trying to just flail around themselves instead of getting an amazing mentor, being willing to give up more of the profit in exchange for like accelerating the learning path. Dude, so after that, when did you jump off on your own and start to have things roll? And I want to start to build up to like how you started to build your team, how your role started to change. Because the main thing I want to have focusing on here is that if you're just now starting out in real estate, y'all, you're definitely going to get stuff from this podcast. But I think the people you're going to get the most value are the people that want to grow a business, like a legit business, or are in that spot. They've got 2 employees, they've got 8, they've got 10, they've got 14, whatever it is. So we're going to dig into that. But when you start to grow that business, how did you start to market and grow deals there? And then how did your role change as the business grew?
Yeah. So that was 2010. I ended up leaving my job in end of 2012, where I basically had more money coming in flipping houses than I did in my core business. But I'm a high C on DISC. I'm a cautious. I'm a very risk averse person. So I need a mentor, and I needed to have that kind of financial security I did to be able to give up the paycheck and go. If I did it sooner, I probably would have been, quite a bit further along than I am now. So that was that. And I was a solopreneur. It was purely a lifestyle business for me, really intentionally. And frankly, I was pretty burned out after I went full time because I was doing 2 jobs, and I had beaten the crap out of myself for 2 or 3 years, not figuring it out, and just really the valley of sorrow, like they say in the tech world. You have the excitement, and you have the valley of sorrow. They have to slowly climb back out before you start to achieve some level of success. That was like a 3-year thing for me. So I was like, I got to chill. Lifestyle business for about the next 4 years or so. Like I said, I was netting maybe $400,000 or $500,000, which was fucking great.
No, it's
amazing. I
amazing.
had very little overhead. It was just me. I did, Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek was a big inspiration for me, kind of doing this whole thing. So I just had a bunch of VAs. I had a bunch of Philippines VAs and other places helping me out as basically assistants for me. So they helped me with all the paperwork and listing stuff and all that. But, I was overseeing the construction projects. I was overseeing the sale of the houses, and I would just use GCs. So my business lived or died on if my GCs were performing. Gotcha. When they were doing well and it was easy and kind of hands off, like it was freaking great. And when they were doing bad, taking twice as long as they should on projects, I was in the hurt box, and there wasn't much I could do about it.
So you were doing that for, you said 4 or 5 years or so. Dude, what was the shift for you? Like when you went from being a solo guy with VAs, and it sounds like enjoying it in hindsight, right? Like that's where it oftentimes is we have an experience that we're experiencing now. And if we would compare that against what we wanted 3 or 4 years ago, we're living like exactly where we wanted to live, right? For the most part. But then there's always kind of the horizon principle, right? It's like where, you're sailing out there on an ocean and you see where you want to go. It's like way out there at the horizon, but the more you sail out there, the thing moves. You can never reach it. So it's like that goal or those goals are always moving. They're always moving. You can never reach it. You always feel like it's unsatisfied. You have ambition, but you're unsatisfied all the time, which I think is healthy. I think it is healthy to have ambition and have a level of dissatisfaction, because that keeps us hungry. I would hate to be like ambitious and completely satisfied and everything, because then that's where you quit moving forward and it doesn't feel good. But what I started to do, this is probably 5-6 years ago, and I don't do it perfect by any means, but I started to recognize, man, like every single time I set a goal, I think, man, once we hit that goal, dude, this whatever is going to magically open up. It's the whole if-then principle, right? If I hit this, then this will happen. If I hit this, then I'll finally be happier. If I hit this, then we'll finally make it. And here's what we can do. If I hit this, then I'll finally pull back and just add more flexibility to my business. And every single time you do it, then you compare yourself against new people. The bar moves. And so I said, well, what if I just started to put like islands on that ocean instead? So rather than just this bare ocean where I'm always chasing a moving target, what if there are islands? The islands don't move, like they stay there. I recognize the darn horizon is always going to move. And I recognize it, like, okay, cool. That's a good target and goal for now, but I know once I get there, it's probably going to move. So don't like put my happiness in that thing. It's more of a thing that I acknowledge is out there. But I put my sights into this island right here. I'm going to go, like, I can go there. I can see that thing. It doesn't move. It's exactly where it is. And I can tell you what it is and what I got to do to get there. I go there. And then my challenge now, and this is something I'm not great at, but I want to get better at, is rather than sailing by the island, which I'm like notorious for, hey, island, awesome, sail by it and wave, yeah. Like get off the darn boat, get on the island, look back, celebrate a little bit. Hey, look how far we came, have gratitude for that. And then after we had a chance to kind of soak into it, now look at the next island. You go, okay, cool. Now we're going to go there. I'm saying that as I also always have to remind myself to get off the island and celebrate. It's not something I'm great at. But let me toss it back over to you, man. So back to that original question. It sounds like you were at a spot where you were getting close to where you wanted to go. You want to make $1 million net, and you're making half, which is amazing. What made you want to then scale that business up and start to add a team?
Yeah, and to your point, luckily, I did enjoy it. I did recognize how when I was waking up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then going to the gym and starting to work at 1 and working from 1 to 6, and then I was going to dinner and going on a date afterwards or whatever I was doing, and I was working 5 hours a day maybe, and totally when I wanted to. I've recognized it. I was like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted when I quit. This is why I bashed my brains out for 3 years trying to figure this out. So it was amazing. So really, what it came down to for me was a little bit of the market changing, where it was a little bit harder to find deals. But more than that, what I think it was is I wanted to challenge myself.
Yep.
So I'd been doing it for 4 years. I knew I could do it. I knew this was good. I knew I was capable of it. And I was still young. I was still in my, early 30s or whatever. So I still had that drive and energy to see what I was capable of. So I was like, let me see if I'm capable of making this into a real company. I've just been screwing around. It's a lifestyle business. I've been having a shitload of fun, a really nice lifestyle, but let me see if I can, actually make it a business. So that for me was what it was. And that's what prompted me to hire my first real employee who was a lead manager, which was like in middle to 2017.
Dude, I love that mindset too, because at the end of the day, if we're looking for freedom, if we're looking for impact, it's whole, like, it's Kiyosaki's quadrant, right? So I've got a job, and so I'm reporting to someone else, and whatever, I'm making a paycheck. And then I don't remember all of them, but then there's a job, and then I'm self-employed. Hey, I've got a job that I made for myself, and I can kind of control it, but I don't have as much time freedom as I could have, if I turn into a business owner. And so the owner is more like, I've got people that work for me. I own the company, but I really don't work in it a lot. And then you've got the investor, and the investor is like, I own a lot of stuff and I don't really work in any of them, but I'm kind of putting money here, putting resource here, and kind of lifting them up. Dude, for you, with the quadrant, where for you right now is like your ideal? Like, do you want to be strongly in the business owner quadrant? Do you want to be in the investor quadrant? Because they are different, quite different.
Yep.
Which quadrant you want to be in?
Definitely the investor quadrant. So that's part of why I got into mobile home parks. And partnered with a partner who's going to be the operator of it, where I'm essentially just finding the deals and helping with the diligence, but then I pass it off to him and really don't have too much involvement after that. And that's also why I brought a friend of mine into this business as a partner and gave him equity over time. And we're slowly over the last couple of years have given him more and more responsibilities taken on more and more, and I've done less and less and less in this business. So yeah, it's absolutely, that's the goal, is to continue to extract myself from the single family business, which there's maybe 30% more to go, I would say, until I'm like almost mostly extracted, or maybe it's just a couple times a week I need to do a check-in or something. So yeah, that's for sure the target.
And that's the cool part. So when you're stepping into the business owner side of it, you're not the person doing all the stuff, right? You're doing stuff still. Like, you're definitely doing stuff still, but you're not doing all the stuff. And then the investor side of it, it's more like, like you were saying, it's probably a monthly or quarterly touch point with the person or people who are running it. And that's where it gets exciting. And this is where I'm going to be, vulnerable here and kind of talk about where I want to get and where I am now, because we're on similar paths. I think we're in very similar spots right now, different companies, different, all that kind of stuff, but similar spots in the transition on the quadrant. Because I have the ability right now to step out of being, of working in the business at all. Like, we've got the cash flow, we've got 40 employees, we've got an amazing leadership team that I'm building. And that's where I've started to look at and go, man, like, what's the one difference between me being able to step into 99% of the work that I want to do versus kind of maybe 70% of the work. There's that extra 30 where I'm like, well, still got to do this stuff. Dude, it came down to the leadership team. It came down to it where I go, there's amazing people I love that are in this company, a lot of them for a long time. And you start to look at it and go, man, they're amazing here. But what I need to be able to actually pull out is a different skill set. It's a person who actually has the experience to run it. It's a person who's a lot more organized and diligent. Some of the leaders love them to death. And even for myself, I'm like, man, I love that person. But the reason I have to keep on coming in is because they're not as organized as I need them to be. And they don't have as much accountability and tenacity to stick with it as I need them to. And so I've had to look at it and go, cool, where can I coach better? And that's what excites me now, John, is literally this week I've been putting together my leadership playbook. And it's all the leaders are going through it. And this is what I'm going to be referring back to all the time. It's and I'll share this with you once it's all done. Like, you can use it in your business if you want, but it's exactly all the training that I want to instill within the business on how to become an amazing leader, how to delegate the right way. It's the principles I want all of our leaders to run by and operate by. It's decision-making matrices. Like, how do I move myself out of decisions that I'm usually making and they're making? It's a whole slew of stuff, man. And that's what's over the next 6 months. I talked with my leadership team and I set that goal for them. I'm like, a year from now, I don't want to be working in the operations of the business. I still want to be working in the business. I love what we're doing. I love the mission, but I don't want to have to wake up thinking that I've got to be at these 3 meetings this week. I want to be on like a meeting this week, maybe 2 kind of thing. So we're in a similar spot for sure.
Yeah.
So dude, with that person that you gave equity, do you see that person being able to step in and like really own it in a way to where you have full confidence, you can check in once a month, look at metrics, look at scorecard, that kind of thing?
Yeah, luckily 100%,
Awesome.
He's my freshman year of college roommate.
Yep.
Our personality profiles are virtually identical. Usually you're supposed to hire somebody with complementary skill sets, but yeah, so he's super competent. He's the acquisition manager role right now, which is just so key in this business. Every single deal that we close, and we might do as much as $3 million this year in wholesale fees. Every single deal, the 140 deals, goes through him. Like, he closes every single deal. We've got 3 inside salespeople who are 3.5 now that are supporting him, and kind of, they're pretty good, so they can get it pretty well qualified and get it nicely teed up for him, but so huge role. And so what we're struggling with now is the acquisition manager role is how these businesses, these wholesaling businesses, live or die, the effectiveness of your salesperson. And like, so we're going to maybe have one of our inside salespeople, move up to the DC area and be an apprentice under him and start seeing if we can give some of that. Because if he can free up even 25% of his time, that would probably allow me to basically almost entirely remove myself from the business. Or maybe it's 30%, so it's kind of a really small amount, and he's totally capable of it. And like you said, man, it's like, I want the meetings to be optional, like where they're on my calendar, but I do not have to attend, just like you're saying. That's what I'm trying to get. Yeah.
Dude, have you ever heard, I'm trying to pull up something right now and I'm going to find it, but have you ever heard of the Billionaire Code?
I've heard it, but I don't know it though.
Alex Sharfin. So dude, I'm going to find the slide deck really fast. And as soon as I do, I'll share it with you because the Billionaire Code is essentially this thing. I first met Alex Sharfin probably 3 years ago through Russell Brunson's mastermind. And 1 second, I can't talk and type at the same time.
Yeah, no worries.
Find this really fast.
Yeah, I can say, and I actually, as you're doing that, one question I had for you too is like, what does your ideal day look like? Like, ideally, how many hours a day do you want to work? When do you want to work them? What are you doing the rest of the time? And how many total hours a week do you want to work?
Dude, love that question. So for me, it's this, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I've got my orange notepad over there with it on it. Is every single year I go through and I write my 20-year, 10-year, 5-year, and then the 1 year is like our actual business plan or whatever. But I wrote my 20-year vision, my 10-year vision, and my 5-year. And the way that I do it, John, is I literally write my ideal day, my ideal average day, 20 years today, like from that point. And then as we're getting into finish this year, I'm going to then shift into like personal planning mode. October through start of December, the first couple weeks of December, it's business planning mode for the next year. And then I shift in the last couple of weeks of December into personal planning mode. And I use a similar process that we use in the business side, but I always pick up that vision story and I read the 20-year and I'm like, all right, if I'm not excited about reading this story, like of the average day that I'm going to live in 20 years, then I need to change it. And I'm so detailed on it. And I'll tell you exactly what my ideal is. So I'm so detailed on it, literally from the second I wake up, what do I see out the window? Where am I at? What's the room look like? What do I hear first? What do my wife and I say first? Where do I go after that?
Nice.
What's the kitchen look like? What do we have for breakfast? Who's there? And my kids are 6, 8, and 10. And so in 20 years, hopefully, none of the kids are still living at home, but they might be. And so like, I'll picture, my 10-year-old, where's McKinley at? And when she's 30, well, she's probably going to be here, just knowing her. And I get so detailed with that. I picture when I go to work, where my work is, what type of work I do, who I talk to, when I go to lunch, what I eat. You get the picture, right? All the way until bedtime. And so my ideal 20 years this, and I'll walk you back to the 5 really, really quick. So my ideal 20 years this, I'm fully in the investor mode. Like it's that I own, somewhere around the 5 to 20 businesses in some way, shape, or form. Probably like investor here and minority here. Yep. A good example of it is a company that I invested in 6 or 7 years ago now, where I put a little bit of money in. Me and a guy named Mark Fort, Michael Masterson, like a big author guy. He was the other investor, and we're selling it right now. And it's going to be a really, really good exit, almost $5 million exit, and didn't spend any time on it. Like once a quarter, we'd look at the board stuff, coach, being an advisor. I'm like, I want to do more of that. It's fun. I like it a lot. It can add a lot of value. So my work at that point, dude, is probably roll into the office. I still want to have an office. I like having an office. I like having people and energy around. But I don't want to have to be in the office. So roll in around 9:30 or 10. That gives me my full morning to wake up and just have a slow morning. Yep. Sometimes right now, my mornings are a little bit too rushed with getting the kids out the door and breakfast and getting them to school, and then coming into the office for our workout at 8:20 in the morning with our gym. And then right after that, I tend to then roll into a meeting, right? Which has been adjusting massively. And I'll walk you through what's been working really good the last 2 months of my schedule to change that up. So my deal is roll into the office somewhere around 9:30 or 10, have a great slow morning, be able to read 10 pages or so, probably do some writing, some creative work. I really love doing that. But the weeks where it's a little bit crazy, I don't give myself enough thinking time. So I've been doing a lot better lately, the past 2 to 3 months, scheduling a good significant amount of thinking time into my schedule. Then I would probably overview some sort of report from somebody to show, hey, how are things doing? And then from there, just being able to coach and mentor the people that are doing that work. That's my ideal. Now, if you walk back to the 5, at the 20, it's coaching and mentoring, 1 or 2 CEOs of companies I'm a part of, maybe working on some local stuff, mentoring some people that are not completely unrelated to business locally. It could be Bible study or something like that. But 5-year out, dude, it's a lot more closer where it's like the coaching and mentoring is probably in my business. It's coaching and mentoring my leaders. And it's the same type of day. I roll in, after a slow morning, 9:30 or 10. But then it's, a couple meetings here and there, coaching the leaders, looking at metric scorecards, and going away and doing the content that I want to do, and really pulling back and doing really deep thinking. Like, I love positioning work. I love marketing strategy, hate execution of it. All that kind of stuff, man. So that's my ideal. And then be out of the office by 4:30, which I usually am anyway.
Nice.
So let me toss it back to you, man. Well, I got the Billionaire Code, then I'm going to share this with you. But what's your ideal average day?
Yeah. So it's I'm in a house probably in Florida on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That's like $2 or $3 million.
Yep. Nothing
super ostentatious, but like a nice house.
Yep.
This is probably my 5-year, I guess, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Be by myself, or I could be married then with a kid. That's kind of a toss up for me personally.
Yeah. Cool.
And kind of similar time frame. I probably would start working around 10 or 11 because I like to work out in the morning, meditate, and like you said, just kind of a slower morning.
Yeah.
And then I think that probably about 3, kind of anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day of work seems to be the ideal for me. Where I want to do a little bit to feel like I'm moving the ball forward. At least that's how I think right now, which may change, but I want to do a little bit. But I want it to be, about that 2 to 4 hours, and just hit it super hard with something that I'm interested in. It could be the commercial real estate stuff that I'm doing now, which I quite enjoy. Finding deals and helping oversee the operations, figuring out how to make the operations more efficient. I like operations strategy kind of stuff and efficiency kind of things where you can just, I'm a nerd and I'm introverted, I want to sit behind my computer, and just kind of play with spreadsheets and stuff like that.
Cool.
And probably not really have very much interaction, I would say, with people. And then probably afternoon, just do water sports. So I learned kiteboarding. So I probably do kiteboarding, or maybe surfing or something, most days, or some other kind of physical hobby type activity, and then it's just back and, have a nice dinner with whoever's there, or by myself.
Dude, so here's the cool thing about it. The funny thing that, and I've had to realize this over the years too, is everything that we just mentioned, we can have right now, right? So the question is why do oftentimes we don't do that? And there's a couple answers that I've come up to. One of them is we just haven't made the decision and choice, because there's a lot that goes to it. It's figuring out what to do with the business, or getting the right leader to make it happen, or finally cutting ties from something that's holding us back, or selling the company if that's what would get you there, or whatever it is, right? Or I think one of the big things that I've discovered, John, is one of the reasons we don't do that. For me anyway, it's like I kind of like the challenge of building, and I'm afraid that if I were to sell Carrot, that I wouldn't be able to then have something I'm as excited to build. And so then I went out and talked to a bunch of mentors and friends who have had multiple exits and things like that. And some of them really amazing, some of them not. And so for me, I'm like, man, maybe I just need to give myself that permission and remove that guilt that is there to go, well, we can do this now, make the decision that we can do it, or find even more joy in what you're doing now. And I'll tell you something, a mindset shift I made a couple months back around that same time. There was a huge one for me, but let me share my screen right here. So the Billionaire Code, dude, goes back to, like I said, my friend Alex Sharfin, and I'm going to share it. So if you guys are listening to the audio version of this, you're not going to be able to see this, but go to the YouTube version of this, and I think you guys get a lot out of it. So, man, the first time I saw this, John, it really hit me. It really hit me hard because number one, it's insanely accurate. Okay, insanely accurate. And I'll kind of break down what the Billionaire Code is. And what I'm explaining here, if you're listening to the audio version of it, is there's this essentially a table that shows the different scales of your business revenue-wise, names them from seeker, starter, promoter, builder, and then it essentially tells you what your issue is that you're probably having and what you need to do to get out of it. And so, all the way here on the left side, it's seeker, which is $0 to $40,000 a year. There's 16 million businesses in America, according to this study. You'll probably fall within that. You're probably dabbling at that point. You're not really full-time yet. The question that you're asking is how do I stop the pressure and noise? There's a lot going on. I haven't figured out how to make this thing work yet, And what you really need to work on at that point is keystone habits personally, like your routine, just getting a better routine so you can manage your time better, daily planning, setting outcomes, personal care. And here you probably don't even understand who you're trying to really serve. You're trying to serve like 4, 5, 6 niches. So I'm going to jump up to kind of where we are. So you're up here in this bucket somewhere up over the $1 million mark, right? With 140 deals.
I'm an operator. Let's say I'm like, maybe this year we'll get to the top end of operator because we're right. Maybe arguably it's a transition between operator and leader. Yeah.
I love it. So if someone has the aspiration to go from 3 to 10 million, I'll tell you it's hard. It's not an easy shift. We're right at the 10 million right now,
nice.
But it's awesome. Like it's awesome. And I'll read this to people, and this is exactly, dude, it's so accurate. So 1 to 3 million, it says you're the operator. There's about 700,000 businesses in this bucket. At this point, you need to delegate your time. Okay, right? So we'll talk into some of the ways that I've done that successfully and some very specific things that's going to make delegating even easier for you and even faster. Next thing is, what you're thinking about is like, how does my team get me ahead? You're really busy. You're working on a bunch of stuff. Your schedule is completely full, for those several weeks. It probably goes in cycles because it'll be full. And you're like, cool, I pared it down. I'm where I want to go. Then things just magically eat up your schedule again. Mm-hmm. And then you pare it down again. You're like, okay, they got ate up again. And so how does my team get me ahead? What you need to do that is building a team and scale consistent delivery. So you've built a team. Now we need to go, okay, cool. Is it the right team? How do we scale consistent delivery so I'm not finding myself having to pull in? Mm-hmm. And then down here, you need to build a team and train them to do what you do really, really well. And so you're at the top end of this scale. So you've probably done a lot of this already, if not all of it. Now to get up here to the leader side of it, the 3 to 10 million, it's about 300,000 businesses. You need to delegate success, dude. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in business because it's easy to delegate tasks, right? You map out, hey, here's this thing. Here's the outcome we're looking to get. Here's the timeline. You own it. If anything, if there's anything outside of these bounds, come back to me and we'll talk about it and you can go do it. You get it done. You pass it back to me. Approval, bam, goes out. But delegating success is different. We'll dig into that. So the question here is, how does my team get ahead? And dude, it took me probably like a solid 2 years to get that through my head. The vast difference between how does my team get me ahead and how does my team get ahead? Because it was always like, shoot, I just need to delegate more. The problem, John, was I was delegating to my leaders. And you should be delegating some things to your leaders for sure. But I was loading them so much with things and not giving them the tools to learn how to delegate well, and not giving them the tools to learn how to make decisions well, or not giving them the tools to teach people below them how to make decisions well. And so those leaders got overwhelmed and overloaded. And by de facto, because they were overwhelmed and overloaded, I started to take on some of their workload because they were so overworked. Right? Like not hours wise, just work wise. Yeah. And so does any of that resonate with you right now as far as the leader? Do you have a leadership team, number one, other than the dude you mentioned before? And then how does that work? Like what are the types of things that you get pulled in on right now that might fill up your schedule?
I don't, besides him. So he's the leadership. Well, him, we have a quasi one. So him, my personal assistant, who kind of is like a junior COO kind of as well.
Cool.
Our kind of payroll and HR person who's part-time. And then our lead manager actually, who's really knows our CRM well and has been with us for 3 years. So we're the ones that review the P&L monthly and business strategy and all that kind of stuff because they know the business the best. So sort of a quasi one, but not a real, leadership team,
No, for really. Sure. And at 12 people, I mean, when we were 12, it was me and my CTO, and that was, really it. There was a support person who came in, but that was where I kind of got blocked pretty heavily because a lot of those decisions came through to me. So what do you guys use right now for creating and communicating your plan or your strategy? And I'm going to take this share down, but do you guys use EOS or like what are you guys doing?
We don't. So I've read Traction. I've read like every, book, and it's weird because I'm a process guy, but I sort of glommed my own kind of thing together, Cool. So we do like a Monday, Friday meeting. Mm-hmm. Monday we do sales training, and then we do a monthly P&L and then a monthly business review where we review all our KPIs, what's working marketing wise, what isn't working, what do we want to change. So that's basically it, in terms of the business management kind of side of things.
Cool. And so do you guys have like I'm sure you guys have scorecards you review. Is that part of what you review on your Monday, your weekly call?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So on the Monday call, we're mainly just looking at where we are on revenue. So where are we on expected profit, which is the deals that we got under contract that are going to close in the future, and where are we on actual monetized profit for that month? And we have our target and how we're doing against that. And then we're typically checking in with our inside salespeople as to what they did across the prior week. How many appointments did you get to our sales manager, and how many under contract deals came from those appointments? And then I'm doing just kind of operational check-ins on everybody. Hey, what are you working on? Do you need help with anything? What about this thing I asked you to do last week? Is that done? All that kind of stuff kind of happens Monday. And then we kind of do a little bit of abbreviated version on like Thursday or Friday.
Cool. Last question here. Then I've got a couple things I'm going to share with you that have worked amazingly well for me over the years, and especially now. So last one, do you guys have any sort of like monthly planning or quarterly planning where you've got the plan for the month, the targets for the whole month, what the plan is, and same thing with the quarter, where you guys pull back? Hey, here's the plan for the quarter. We want to tackle this part of the marketing side, and here's our new targets for the quarter. Here's the projects we're working on. Here's who owns them. Do you guys have that published so everyone knows it and review it often?
We don't have it published. So we do that with our like quote unquote leadership team. We do over the P&L. We go over based on our metrics, what isn't working and what we want to change for the following month. And then I typically will go delegate and assign that, or Lacey, my assistant, will to go implement that. But we're not communicating that.
Okay. So that might be one upgrade, at least for your full-time employees, man, is what I have found is anytime those, the people that work for you are in the dark on where you're going, all of a sudden, like everything that they have questions on outside of general basic process in the day-to-day gets passed uphill because they don't know where you're going. So therefore they don't know if their decision is helping you get there. And so as soon as we started publishing and involving the team in helping to create the overall plan for the quarter, hey, what are the one or two objectives that we're trying to reach this quarter? Let's kind of write out some of the results that we're going for. Hey, this number here, and we want to move this to this, and let's improve this, and whatever it is, like make it measurable, right? But an objective might be, go into this market. And then you might have some key results under there where it's like, okay, cool. What would success look like if we're going into that market? Well, it's pull out 5 deals in the first 90 days. It's average, profit of $20,000. It's whatever. I'm making it up, right? So whatever you deem as success, we would then talk with our team about that. Everyone's all in alignment with it, that's our core objective outside just the normal everyday stuff we're already doing. And then we start to align out the plan, involve the people in it. And the cool thing is, as soon as you do that, dude, oftentimes their ideas are even more amazing than you ever thought. And then they take it and run with it. And there's a couple things that started to work really well. Is for a long, long time, and I'll still catch myself in this, is people would come to me, they'd have a problem, or they'd have something where it's like, I looked at this and here's 3 options. Want to see what you think. I would answer them, right? It's like, okay, yeah, well, that's awesome. Option 2 looks great. Let's go ahead and run forward with that. Or they'd have a problem and I would say, awesome. Here's the way to solve it. And they'd go off and run with it. What happens, especially as your team as your team grows, you have those questions amplify a lot more come your way. And now people sees you as the pressure release valve for them. And there's a couple amazing books, dude, that I give to all my leaders now. One of them is the 1 Minute Manager and the Monkey. Have you ever read that one? Oh, it's so good. It's a quick read. 1 Minute Manager and the Monkey. And essentially the cliff notes of it is we as leaders are taking on the monkeys from our people. They come to us with a problem or a suggestion. You say, hey, awesome. Yes, I'm going to take that. I'll get back to you tomorrow on that. Or, you know what? Awesome. I'll go away and make that thing and I'll get it to you Friday. Or, okay, let me read this and I'll reply back to you by Tuesday next week and we'll make a decision. As soon as we do that, John, we take the monkey off of their back. We put it on our back. And then all of a sudden for them, they're like, cool, well, the boss hasn't got back to me on this yet. So it must not be that important. So I'll kind of just hang out for a little bit. And now you've got 14 monkeys on your back. You forget to deliver on these 2 over here because you had a lot of them. And then the other people are doing their work, but also the monkeys are on your back. You own it now because you said you're going to get back to them on it. Yep. And that's a big one. So stop taking monkeys on your back. And then here's how you do it is when they come to you, you say something to the effect of, hey, awesome. Sounds like you did your research. What would you do? Or what are the 2 options you're bringing to me? And then have them, there's another book called Turn the Ship Around. Have all my leaders read it. We have all of
I read that one. It's great.
So the whole I intend to thing, right? Just be ruthless with the I intend to. If someone comes to you and says, hey, here's the problems, say, awesome. Do you have a recommendation on it that you're wanting to push forward on? And just let people know, use the I intend to vernacular. Like, come to me and tell me what you intend to do. Because as you read from the book, they have to put a lot more thought process into that research before they ever bring it to you.
Totally.
And oftentimes they don't even, they'll answer it before they even bring it to you. So those 2 books are amazing. Another thing that I started to do, and this will be really valuable for you and your dude. It sounds like if you want to have that extra level of that freedom, it sounds like he might need to elevate up to like an operations type of person. Mm-hmm. If he's a similar personality to you, and it sounds like you're an operations type of guy, that he might be an amazing person to elevate up to operations, give him, a little bit more comp or more bonus or whatever it is, and have him train a person that comes in as a transaction coordinator or whatever his current role is. And then start to give him more and more of that decision-making ability. There's something called type 1 versus type 2 decisions. You ever heard of that? Dude, same thing. This transformed things for me and my leaders. My leaders would be coming to me, and it might even be a really important project, and they'd want me to weigh in, or I would want to weigh in because I think I just should, right? And a type 1 decision is a type of, and this came from Jeff Bezos. A type 1 decision is a decision that it's like a one-way door. You can walk through it, but you can't walk back in. Right. It's a decision that's a big one. It's got a lot of gravity. Type 2 decisions, which are the vast majority of all decisions, are you can walk through the door and walk back out if it didn't work. So that's an offer that was put out there that just isn't going to work, and you want that person to make it, and you might lose 20 grand on this one, but it's a learning lesson. Or it's the font on the logo that can always be changed, or it's the toilet, like whatever it is, right? And I would challenge you over the coming weeks to look at your calendar. Number 1, do a calendar audit. Every single Monday, look at that calendar. And one thing that Warren Buffett does, which I love, is he doesn't schedule things out very far. So if you were to hit him up and you're working in his organization, say, hey, Warren, I want to get in your calendar for a month out. Oftentimes what he says is, well, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in a month. And so hit me up like the day before, because then I'll know what I actually need to be doing.
Nice.
And that's one thing that I've started to find, John,
that's good.
I would start to book things out because someone would come to me and I knew I couldn't take it this week, but I'm like, oh, you know what? 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, just do it there because that seems so far out and it's probably fine. But you don't really know what you need to do on a Tuesday, 3 weeks out. And so unless it's podcast day on my Thursdays, I don't schedule anything out longer than a week. Nothing.
Love it. Yeah, great.
And so then on Monday, that's when I look at my calendar and I go, cool. This stuff that's on the calendar is stuff I scheduled less than a week ago. Is it still relevant? And my assistant and I sit down and we have full reign to go, let's look at our priorities. Priorities are served first. I map out massive time blocks for priorities. My Wednesday is straight up focus day. It's like no meetings on Wednesdays unless it's on a focus project. Thursday's content day. And then Monday and Friday are kind of coaching days with my teams and stuff like that. And Tuesday is kind of a floating day. But we'll sit down, we'll look at the calendar. We do an audit every single week, and we look at it and go, each meeting, do I absolutely have to be on that? And half of them are no. Like half of them are like, no, not really.
That's great.
I'll shoot the person a quick Voxer message, or I'll shoot the person a quick Slack, or Jen will, my assistant, or she'll hop on there for me now. I'll be like, Jen, here's what I would weigh in on that meeting anyway. Can you just take it to the meeting for me? And then let me know what comes out of it. And so half of my meetings are gone. Like most of my week is not meetings anymore. The audit helps big time. Anytime someone comes to you with decisions, think, is it type 1 or type 2? And just say, hey, awesome. I'd like for you to make the decision with these bounds. As long as it's under 5K, you make the call, or whatever it is, to start to move more and more into type 1. And here's the last thing, John. I know I'm buzzing through it because we're hitting at the top of the hour. But the last thing is this. As we had both talked about our ideal days, right? Yeah. And in our ideal days, there was not one task in our ideal days that was $100 an hour or $1,000 an hour work. Mm-hmm. Everything that we had talked about in our ideal days was $10,000 an hour work. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. Because even when you're talking about messing around on spreadsheets, it's probably not like on one specific deal right here. Maybe it's probably on things that are not a week out or a day out. It's probably things that are a month or a quarter out. Right. And that's where I'd like for you to look at your calendar. And I'm saying this to challenge myself more as well, is how do we look at our calendars? And when we're doing that audit every week, look at it and go, is this $10,000 an hour work or less? It's crazy hard to be doing all $10,000 an hour work. Like it's insanely hard. But every single day, we need to at least spend 1 hour that's $10,000 an hour work. And so as I'm planning out my day, I go, is there $10,000 an hour work here today? And for me, $10,000 an hour work is mapping out systems or processes that are scaling the leadership team. It's working on positioning work for our branding in our company. It's picking up that phone call and trying to land a big deal that could happen. It's not doing the little things that are $100 an hour work. So time audit, or do the audit each week in the calendar. Look at it. Do I got to be there? If not, send a message to that person beforehand, prep them, or say, hey, you guys can do it. Bring me up to speed afterwards, or send your assistant and prep the assistant. Number two, there's got to be at least 1 hour a day on $10,000 an hour work, and it's deep thinking stuff. And then number three, as your people are coming to you, I guess number three, get that person elevated into an operations position and get him to backfill it in. And now that person is directly reporting to you. I know he already is, but daily on the operational side, you currently are the operator of the business because that's the way it's set up. You make those few moves over the next 90 days, 120 days, I think you're going to buy back at least 25% of that time, and probably even more as you go. I know I threw a lot at you, dude, like I said, because we're nearing the hour, but those concepts have been changing the game for me, and it moved my life from calm, or moved it from like kind of hectic to a lot more calm. And it moved it from, there's this book with Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game.
Yeah, great book.
Oh man, it started to move me more towards that infinite mindset. Yeah, and I'm like, all right, the numbers only matter in the context of me making progress. Like, I don't even care if we hit our goals anymore. Now we have goals, but I just care that we made progress on them, because it's the infinite game stuff, which is kind of fun.
That's good stuff.
Let me toss back over to you, man. What do you? I mean, you have an amazing business, dude. Like 140 deals a year is crazy. 12 people. You guys are very profitable. It sounds like you have the type of a business that so many people would want. And the cool thing is you have the ability now to be able to go do whatever the heck you want to do. For all of us, it's just making the decision to make the shift. So totally. What are you most excited about for 2021 to make a shift on in your business and life?
Yeah, well, so I'm putting all my shit into storage at the end of this month, and I'm going to just live in Airbnbs cool. in different parts of the country. So, and I told my partner, we had this conversation a week ago, that I'm going to give him a little more of the company, and I'm going to plan to work even less than I am now, and probably take more, week to week type sojourns doing the things that I do, where I'm going to have minimal, if any, time working. And overall, maybe get it down to, hopefully under maybe 15 hours a week total of time, maybe 12, 10 hours if I'm lucky, in that business. So that's kind of the plan. Dude, it's a great suggestions though, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, for sure, man. And this is kind of what I'll wrap with right here is the thing that was kind of the crux of my big mindset shift, like I said, 2-3 months ago, was, man, I had one of those same weeks, dude. Like it was just before you had made that post. And that's why my mindset was in that, is because it was several weeks before it. And it was like, man, there was 2 days in a row where I'd let go of a leader and love the person to death, like a brother. Just wasn't going to be a good fit for the company moving forward. Because I'd found that I had to come back in too often to kind of backfill their stuff because they didn't have the right skill set that we needed. And there was 2 days in a row, man, where I'd adopted their skill set or their work, of course, after I'd let them go. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff we were doing. And it piled on my shoulders, and I felt the weight of it. I'm like, man, why do I feel this way? I've got the business of my dreams, and net multiple 7 figures a year personally. Amazing wife, amazing family, healthy, like the business is still growing, amazing team, like all this kind of stuff. And it was because I had that weight of all the crap that I didn't know how to pull myself out of that. And this quote from Einstein popped up in my brain. And the quote was, the same level of thinking that got you into this is not the same level of thinking that will get you out of it. Right. And I'm like,
yeah, that's great.
All right. The same level of thinking that got me into this was taking on tasks. It was saying, okay, I will just do more, and I will just work a little bit longer hours during this season. And I'll just do more tasks. And I'm like, I had felt the weight, and I had realized that I could not task my way out of it because the list kept on getting bigger. And so I said, okay, the shift I've got to make, going back to Billionaire Code, the shift I've got to make is I no longer can just try to be more efficient. I can no longer just try to look at productivity and I can't just try to dial in my schedule more. I've got to get my leadership team ahead, which means I've got to be an amazing leader, which means I've got to build a real program for those leaders so they can actually be great leaders themselves. And immediately, dude, it took it from like a heavy weight over those 2 days to immediately shifted mentally, because I'm like, dude, I'm so lucky that I am in this position because I get to figure out how to get out of it. Like literally, it shifted from this weight on me to going, I have to solve it with a different level of thinking. I'm so lucky because I get to figure out how to get out of it. Because when I figure out how to get out of it, that means I can move over towards the investor side of things. Is me figuring out how to do this.
Totally.
I'm pumped about it, man. I'll keep sharing what I'm doing. I'll share my leadership playbook with you if it's something you will find useful.
Yeah, please.
And I'm pumped about what you're doing in business, man. I appreciate you taking the challenge to hop on the podcast with me too.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, dude, I know we're 5 minutes over time, but tossing over to you. Any parting words for people as we wrap the CareCast?
No, so if anybody wants to hear more about my journey and the business stuff that I've got going on, Freedom Blueprint Show is what it's called. Freedom Blueprint Show. We just launched a podcast as well.
Dude, so I love it.
Yeah. Sorry, it's getting dark here, but Freedom Blueprint Show, and would love for anybody who's interested to check that out.
Cool. John, appreciate it, man. Jonathan Carcone, guys, from Four Brothers. Go check him out. Been a Carrot member for years and also crushes it with his other marketing in big ways. And man, I'm rooting for you in big ways because exactly the shift you're wanting to make, we need to see more investors making this. So many of them are so focused and on the deal numbers and doing this and just doing more and more. And I love that you're going back to your roots of why the heck you created this business in the first place and building it for that. So John, appreciate you sharing your story, man. Have an amazing rest of the week. Everybody go like and review this puppy on Apple Podcasts. That's what it's called now. And YouTube. And we'll talk soon. Thanks, John.
Thanks.